do to contribute our own quota to our nation building. As you quite aware, this country belongs to all of us, and so very very shortly, like I said, we'll be speaking with Smith Toby, and so we are back. We are back, and let's just begin our discussion with Smith quickly.
Okay, we're trying to establish. Okay, we've been able to establish contact with Mr. Smith Toby. Okay.
Yes, Smith, how you doing?
Well, let me say the pleasant good afternoon to you, Buema JV, Buema, and of course, good afternoon to Sobot George. It is always my pleasure. Thanks for placing the call.
Smith, we understand.
Yeah, before that, let me just congratulate Smith. Having seen him since then, a very new man. He said he's a new man now. So Smith, congratulations.
Thank you so much for following your footsteps and all in this thing for a very long time. But thanks for the compliment and thanks for everything.
Okay, Smith. For me, I always congratulate you, my man. Anytime I see you, I'll say congratulations. Okay, Smith, we understand yesterday that the committee that was set up by the president to investigate what actually led to the gasoline shortage in Liberia. To our understanding, that committee submitted their findings to the president yesterday. Could you mind taking us through what actually unfolded?
Well, thank you. Again, like you rightly said, the task force headed by the Minister of State for our portfolio, Minister Chokon B, who of course was charged with the responsibility of proving what was the factor responsible for the shortage of petroleum products on the market, especially having to do with the LPRC. That committee started work as of the date of the president's instruction. They've done a piece of job as requested by the president, and they finally submitted their findings along with recommendation to the office of the president, concluding the mandate of the president to find out as to the situation that led to the petroleum shortage. It's a detailed report, and the report will be made public in the next few days. That will also detail the findings of what the committee found out. The report came along with recommendations to the text of the president. I have a conversation around what that recommendation entails. The president has committed to act on the recommendation from the report. So we'll all look forward to what the recommendations that came to the president text unfolded. But the president is committed, and the reason for all of it is to put a halt or to find ways or means to avoid the risks of what happened at the LPRC that led to a complete breakdown in the petroleum industry. The president has been very keen about this. Boyman, you can attest that the president made reference to this in his recent cabinet meeting, and of course we emphasize that those who are responsible for the needs of the Liberian people should pay attention to those basic needs. People should be very concerned about those basic things to include rice, fuel oil, gasoline, those things that intend to bring the entire country to a standstill. So has been concluded, and they submitted their report, and the president will act on the recommendation as requested by the committee.
Now, Smith, do you care to tell us about some key findings in the report? Smith? Hello? But it seems that we lost Smith Toby.
We'll try to establish contact with Smith
because we really want to know.
Stay on the line. Hello, Smith.
You have to maybe shut up the phone and call back.
Yeah,
we need to know some key findings of the report.
Well, like he said, that the report will be made public, official. And probably, it is like he indicated, it is a voluminous report. Mm-hmm. So it will have to take maybe 1 or 2 days because you have to read it and actually know what is embedded within that report. Then you can make an informed decision as to what actually happened, because you listened to him also, he said there are recommendations that were put forth by the crafters of that report, or those who participated in the investigation, or who were qualified to conduct that investigation to actually know what happened. And this is in fulfillment of President George Weah's promise. We all can remember somehow that immediately when this gasoline shortage took place in Liberia, the president, okay, Smith is calling us again. We can, hello, Smith.
Yeah, sorry, it's like we're having some connection with the network.
Yes, Smith. Yes, Smith. Yes, I was trying to ask as to whether you could share with us some key findings. I know you read the report already. I'm sure of that.
Not in details, because the report was directly submitted to the president. The president has been perusing the report. But what we are key to mention to you is that the president is very concerned about the situation at the LPRC, and not just the LPRC, but with all other institutions and government agencies. Specifically right now, we're talking about the sector that was hard hit, the LPRC. There's been this age-old situation at LPRC. We had some system situation. The report has brought out some other new findings that had to do with what has been there in years. They call provisional lifting. You heard the Commerce Ministry that put a temporary halt to that. The president is thinking about putting a total end to what is being called as provisional lifting. That should be some of the contributing factors that led us to the situation in the last few weeks. Of course, the recommendation also came with some of the clears in some of the administrative areas. The president is looking in that recommendation. Like I said, the president is committed, and we can assure you that those recommendations from the Minister P committee will be given very serious attention, because the president is not looking forward for the reoccurrence of what happened in the last few days.
Now, Smith, the report, I know you said you did not read the entire report, but from the surface, did they named anybody as been responsible maybe at the LPRC for the recent shortage?
So to jump the gun and to tell you what will happen in the next few hours or in the next few days, will give you a clue as to what decision the president will take. The investigation did not just go to the storage facility or to see what happened to the tank. There are individuals who are responsible for processes and procedures that will count or give proper accountability of things to avert what happened. Some people are very lackadaisical in their operation. And to put an icing on the cake, in all of it, that recommendation that Mr. P's committee have put forth to the president is being thoroughly looked into. And I can assure you that the president will take some very serious action to avert a reoccurrence of what have happened at the LPRC.
How soon you think, because you continue to talk about the days, are we expecting the president to take action maybe in the next 24 or 48 hours?
Well, that is at the will and pleasure of the president, from the urgency and the way the country nearly came to a standstill in this entire situation. The president is not going to take as long as some other reports will take long to peruse. This had to do with the government, the people, and of course the president was equally concerned about the movement of people, knowing that once we continue to keep people in certain functions or functionary of governance, and their inaction or their inability will bring some situation to the government, the president will not relent. Like we've been saying, in this term of the president's administration, this is year 3. The president is not taking and then no for an excuse. He's not taking excuses for people who are supposed to be doing what they're out to do. So if you are not living up to the president's expectation, especially with performance, with things that have to do with the livelihood of the Liberian people, the president is not going to hold back his decision, and I can assure you that decision is just ahead of us in a matter of days.
Okay, before you go, let's go back on the issue of provisional lifting. Are you saying that the president has put a hold to that perpetually?
So, like the Minister of Commerce release said, and that they temporarily suspended the issue of provisional listing. The president want to see more of that. It's not just about suspending provisional listing, but to do away with provisional listing.
Okay.
And I'm sure in the recommendation that came to the president's office, that is also inclusive. So the president will be able to make a decision on that. That is something that has been talked about. That provisional listing, that is something between and among the importers, but it's also been affecting the full operation of the sector. So the president thinks that there's no need to continue in that direction. It is a way of what the government called the whole kind of a situation. We think that is not being helpful, and the president thinks the best way to go is to start that out of the procedure at the LPRC that is embedded in the recommendation, and the president will act on that recommendation.
Many thanks, Smith. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
You're listening to the Bumper Show rated on the OBC 99.9 and other frequencies across Liberia.
Yes, sir, but I think that's a very important move. Like I was saying, when this situation occurred, President George Weah immediately went into action. He constituted a committee because before you can act in situations like this, you need to first know the root cause. What happened? What led to where we are? How did we get here? Okay, so the president will not just sit down in a vacuum and have that perception that, oh, this is what happened. So he set up a committee. That committee was set up to investigate. They have concluded their investigation. Yesterday, they formally presented their findings to the office of the president. And you're listening to the press secretary, the deputy press secretary of the president. He has assured all of us that those recommendations that were laid into that finding, into that report, will definitely be adhered to. That the government, the president will do everything possible to ensure that those recommendations are fully implemented. So definitely, that's something that we need to look at, and it is something that will definitely happen. The Minister of Agriculture will, any moment from now, will be here. They are going to join us so that they can talk about, the Minister of Agriculture was recently appointed, so we expect to see her here any moment from now to talk about the sector, the plans, the visions. So all of you out there who've been having that huge desire for agriculture, we just want you to know that this is the best time. All of your questions, all you need to do is to tune into 99.9 and other frequencies across Liberia so that we can form part of this conversation. Okay, so we can open the phone lines and talk to our people. If you don't
Okay, so I think we've all heard already that the special committee that the president set up to look into the petroleum field, the petroleum situation, the committee has finally concluded its investigation, has presented its report to the president with recommendations, and the president is now looking at that to take the appropriate steps and appropriate measures. But in the meantime, the president has put a hold on the issue of provisional lifting, like our colleague said it, that it's all a big hole and cover hole. So basically, we're hoping that in subsequent days we'll be able to invite a member of the committee, or maybe we'll be able to invite the deputy press secretary or the press secretary after having gone through the report along with the president to give us an insight, a detail of some of the findings in that report. So let's open the lines for you in the meantime on 0776 089-713. Like we said earlier, that at 4:30, agriculture will be our guest. We'll be doing a profiling interview with the minister, trying to give him an insight and understanding as to what the minister is that, as to who she is, and some of her pedigree. She'll be telling us basically this competence, the qualifications that she's coming with to this job, and then also we look into what she has on her plate for agriculture. As you're quite aware, it's been our desire and dream to see the sector improve. So basically, she'll be telling us how does she intend to do that. So in the meantime, let's put our calls on 0776089713.
Hello, your name and where you calling from? Hello?
Okay, it seems that this call is not yet
ready. Hello? Hello? Your name and where are you calling from? Okay, what's the take?
Well, for me, first of all, let me congratulate those task force that was set up for the investigation of the gasoline project. And I thank them for presenting the report to the president. I will ask the public to be calm and let's wait for what the president, for all the recommendations in our report. The word of the president and the president know that this situation brought out the tension in our country. Then we wait for him to take immediate.
All right, thank you very much for calling. Your name and where are you calling from?
0776089713, or better still 0880-514-096.
Hello? Good afternoon, your name and where are you calling from? Okay, Mr. Topler, what's the take? No, that's not what we're discussing here. Hello, Saba.
Yes.
Let's take another caller. Hello, your name and where are you calling from?
0776089713. That's the number to call, and you live right here on the Bumper Show. Again,
hello?
0776089713.
Your name and where are you calling from? Okay, so what's the take?
Many thanks. 0776089713. That's the number to call, and you are live right here on the Bumper Show. Or better so, 0880-514-096. We're taking two more calls and we'll wrap it up. 0776089713. Or better still, 0880-514-096. That's the numbers to call. And then you are live on the Bumper Show. But very, very shortly, we'll be playing host to the Minister of Agriculture. Basically, we'll be looking at trying to inquire who the minister is, some of the competence or qualification or the pedigree that she's coming up with coming with this job with. And then we'll be looking at her whole plans of action. What is it that she has on her plate to improve our agriculture sector that's been lying dead for I mean, put it that way. Okay, let's take a few more calls quickly.
Hello, your name and where are you calling from? Okay, what's the take? Hello?
Okay. It's and so if you are celebrating your birthday today, the Bumper Show says happy birthday to you. Your wedding anniversary, congratulations. It's 4:30 in Monrovia. In fact, it's 4:31, let me just say, in Monrovia. Our two guests is already seated. That's the Honorable Minister of Agriculture. So, get the ball rolling. Bye-bye.
Welcome to our studio.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here.
Okay, I'll thank you too for coming and honoring our invitation this afternoon. Before we go into the details of what we invited you here to discuss this afternoon, many of our listeners may want to know you. They've heard about your name, Madam Jeanine Cooper, but they could want to know who you are, in terms of telling them about yourself. Who actually is Madam Jeanine Cooper?
Well, Madam Jeanine Cooper. Yeah. Well, I'm a Liberian.
Okay.
That's the first thing. I've been in the agriculture sector all my adult life. Even when I was serving abroad. Went to school here, graduated, and what I wanted to study at that time in the late 70s was development studies or economic development.
Okay.
And so I went to university in the US, Michigan State University, to study economic development, but they didn't have any program like that at undergraduate level. And I found it difficult to get programming in that direction, so I wound up majoring in business administration and French. Got my first degrees in that, and then I went on to do a master's program in the College of Agriculture and Natural Resources in the same university, called community development. And that was a very, very new field. In fact, it was one of only 3 programs being offered around the world at that time in community development. And I coupled that with urban studies. So we were looking at the declining urban environments, particularly in cities like Detroit and so forth. And all the time thinking how I will apply this when I come back to Liberia. Unfortunately, my studies were interrupted. I was in a victim of an accident, and so I was not able to complete. I came home and I started working immediately in the rubber sector, managing rubber farms and plantations and brokering rubber.
Okay.
What today they call aggregator. Back then we were rubber brokers who would buy from smallholder farmers and put it together in our trucks and then go and sell to the larger farms and make a commission that way. And pretty early on, I realized that certain time of the year, like around March, April, the farms would be empty. That everybody going to make farm. They were making rice farms, and I was working mainly in the Todi area, Kakata, Margibi, Lower Bong areas. And I said, okay, so when they plant the rice, where do they carry it to mill? And there was no rice mill closer than Banga. And so in 1990, when the MPFL forces took over Kakata, they also took over my first rice mill that I had just established. We hadn't even actually milled a grain of rice when they took it over. And we lost, all our assets and everything, the trucks, the equipment. But, and you know what the war became. Everything kind of went on a different footing. But I never lost that dream to operate in the rice sector. And so I worked with Médecins Sans Frontières, the first team that came to Liberia during the war, working with IDPs and refugees. I negotiated and brought the first truckloads of rice from San Pedro through Logatuo and into displaced camps in Fendel in the latter part of 1990, when we had thousands and thousands of people in the displaced camps all around Monrovia. We couldn't access Bushra Island, of course, but we could access all the way up Soul Clinic, Omega, VOA, all those areas there had displaced camps, and we brought food to them to Hood Road. So that's the work that I was doing, and I continued working with Médecins Sans Frontières. The following year, we set up what we call the Orphans and Abandoned Children Program, and that led into us. When that program's funding came to an end, we said, well, we need the, children of Liberia still need help. We're still vulnerable. We're that 1991 talking about, so we're in full war, crisis mode. And so what we did was we formed the Children Assistance Program, which many people know for the vocational training that it has done over the years. It's still existing. It's still operating.
CAP for sure.
CAP. Yeah, that's what it was called. And then I was here, and again, I was trying once more in the mid-90s to set up a rib smoke sheet plant. I can't get away from agriculture. Setting up a rib smoke sheet plant, what I call on a shoestring. So I have some pieces of equipment and some pieces of equipment, and we were there setting it up when April 6th happened. And after April 6th, because another setback. I had young children. My youngest was a toddler at that time, and I just had to yield to the inevitable. I had to take my children out to safety. It would be a good 17 years, almost 20 years before I would be able to come back in the way that I could. And over those years, I worked with another NGO called Vétérinaires Sans Frontières, which is the veterinarians version of the Médecins Sans Frontières. And we're dealing with pastoralist issues, livelihoods issues in drought-affected areas in the largest animal production centers in Africa. That's the Horn of Africa, northern Kenya, Somalia. Even during the war in southern Somalia, we were there training community animal health workers and working in that. Food security was a big issue. And I took that time to go back to school, and not go back to school. I did an online master's degree in what's called Managing Rural Change, and that's a program that's jointly administered by the Department of Agricultural Economics and the Department of Rural Development. And it's mainly a practical approach to agricultural economic theories. How do you apply it so that you can catalyze development from the rural areas? I really like that program. I did my dissertation on capitalizing livelihoods in the rubber sector to boost Liberia's post-conflict development, post-conflict reconstruction, knowing that the rubber sector is the largest employer in the country. So that dissertation, one of the recommendations I had in there was the establishment of the Liberia Rubber Development Fund, which came to pass a few years later. That recommendation was taken up and has gone through. That you have the Liberia Rubber Development Act directly coming from that. So I worked with the United Nations in Kenya, in the region, Central and Eastern Africa, basically doing coordination of humanitarian crisis and issues. And probably one of the biggest things that we did was the organization of the annual consolidated appeals, where the humanitarian appeals are done. I was doing humanitarian appeals all around the continent, actually. I was one of the few bilingual trainers in the consolidated appeal. What is that? That is, you take all the NGOs and entities that are working, delivering humanitarian services. You have the donors on the other hand who are funding these things, and you develop visions and strategies for how you will attack whatever the crisis is in that area. And many times it was drought and food insecurity. When I was managing the Kenya office, we had almost a $500 million appeal And 98% of the funding that came in there per year, 98% of that went through that consolidated appeal, because the donors, everybody found it to be such a good prototype. Yes, a good approach. It was comprehensive. It covered all the needs, and that coordinated approach. Most of we have consolidated appeals around the world, but most of them you will find one donor will come and say, I don't see the things I want to do is not in there, or an NGO will come. 98% of the actors in the humanitarian sphere used to go through the consolidated appeal. So a few years later, I was promoted to head the African Union Liaison Office for OCHA, which is like a permanent, like we have perm rep in New York, permanent rep to the UN. Yeah, we have the same thing. We have Liberia has one to the African Union, to ECOWAS, etc. But I was the one from the UN, OCHA, to the African Union. So I was accredited, gave my papers as a diplomatic post, and we worked there, and we developed a humanitarian framework for Africa. That's something that's being put in place now. It's something that we spearheaded that development. But I think what I was most proud of was how we were able to mobilize the Operation Aseoa. I don't know if you remember during the Ebola crisis, when we managed to get 2,000 health practitioners from around Africa, when nobody wanted to come to Liberia, Sierra Leone, Guinea. We got the African practitioners, and we got the funding. We got the funding from African entrepreneurs, billionaires, even everybody could contribute, and that was a huge program. The first time that the African Union has actually mobilized that kind of support. I think we had about 23 countries participating, sending their doctors, nurses, different. Yes, they came to Liberia. They were here. They were based here to support the whole Ebola fight. And that was something that I spearheaded, fought for, and I came and I joined them. I was here for several months as part of the UN mission on Ebola relief. Well, all of that, it just made my appetite to come home stronger. We had started with my son Fabio, we had started Fabrar in 2010, and so it was time to come. So as soon as I qualified for early retirement, I retired, and I came home, and I've been here ever since. Since 2016.
Okay.
Actually, no, I came home in 2016. 2017, I took over the company, and where we were, we were a micro milling operation. My son took it to. We became one of the largest rice processing plants in the country. But then I took it to another level by expanding our exports, and last year we started exporting to the US, to the EU, to the UK, and even to other African countries, and we've even sent rice to China.
Wow.
You can go to our website now, and if you're in the US, you can click on a few buttons and you can order Liberian country rice.
How many metric tons per annum?
Well, that we export, we've only exported about 3 to 5 metric tons. So far. We just started last year now, but per annum we process about 600 metric tons here that we sell through the school feeding programs, World Food Program, Mary's Meals, other feeding programs like Bestwa in Buchanan, and we sell it on the local market. So it's not that we are depriving Liberians. It's only a fraction of what we produce do we actually export, but the margins that we get are vastly different.
What actually motivated you to get involved with this agricultural sector? Yeah.
Well, I mean, I grew up in an agricultural household.
Okay.
Agriculture was part of our life. I don't know how to. My earliest memories of were agriculture. My father worked. He was working at what they call the government farm that later became Kari in Swakoko. That's where I spent my early childhood. So agriculture was all around me. My father was Undersecretary of Agriculture. He became the first minister of what President Torba called the Ministry of Action for Development and Progress, and later that was changed to Rural Development. So agriculture, rural development, that was my background. It's what I studied, it's what I've lived, and what I've done. And now President Weah looked all around and saw Muffin me and decided to appoint me as a Minister of Agriculture. I think I've come home.
Okay, Madam Minister, Madam Minister, let's give you the accolade that dues you. Basically, I'm sure you've come with a vast level of experience and wealth to the job, and let's commend you for that. Now that you've come home, you've got the appointment as Minister of Agriculture. First, what's your impression being named as Liberia's Minister of Agriculture?
What's my impression of
What's your impression as being named?
Well, there's a lot of work that can be done in agriculture. I've been for the last 3.5 years, I've been working with my company that's the largest rice processor in a country whose staple food is rice. So I've touched on almost all the aspects. I've worked with all of the different sectors, people in cassava production, palm oil, rubber. Of course, rubber was my first baby that I was working with. Horticulture, we've been growing our own crops and vegetables. We started a farmers market last year, towards the end of the year, that we held a couple of times. And the sector has been, you said dead. It's not dead. It's been struggling. It's needed a champion. And the ministry has not been really the champion for agribusinesses. And you see, agribusiness, you have to understand. You have agriculture. You go, you plant your cassava, your rice, your edos, whatever you plant. You can either eat it and then you're a subsistence farmer, or you can try to sell your surplus. You selling your surplus, that's a business. You have to be able to, you sell your surplus to be able to provide yourself the means to move from subsistence to development. What they used to call from mats to mattresses. And that part has been neglected. The whole focus has been on production, so growing, but not helping the people to find markets. And if anytime you heard the legislature calling the Minister of Agriculture there, it was because of that. It's like, who is going to buy this rice? Y'all told the people, y'all help them now, they've grown all this rice, they have no market. How can those links be? Meanwhile, we have people who are buying rice and importing rice. How can we make those linkages so that when they grow that surplus, they have a place that they can sell it, they can make money, they can go and grow more. And it's that agribusiness focus that's been missing. And I think we've paid lip service to it in many of our policy decisions and our programming. Funding coming in, for example, talks about value chain, but they don't they don't support the value chain. They just support production, and we give you improved seeds and we give you more tools, etc., etc. If a farmer needs 25 bags of rice in a year to feed his family, and he's farming and he's doing 5 bags, and you help him to double his production, he's doing 10, he has nothing to sell. He still hasn't reached that 25 that he needs to feed his family. Why we can't help him to go from 5 to 50? Then he has 25 bags in surplus to sell, and he can move then meaningfully. So those kinds of linkages, that kind of thinking has been lacking. But it's not late. The first day starts today.
So what are your visions and plans for the agriculture sector?
But my vision is very simple. I look at Liberian agriculture, and this is the first time I'm speaking about this publicly, but it's something you will hear more and more about. What I think, we have a dividend that comes from the war, and that dividend is, we have not, our agriculture sector has been dormant pretty much. So we have not done like next door in Cote d'Ivoire, Ghana, all the other countries in Africa. We have not done what the experts told us to do. So we have not been putting fertilizers in our crops. We have not put chemical pesticides on our crops because we ain't had it, and we ain't had the money to do it, etc., etc. So what we have is, you can call it virgin agriculture.
Okay.
At the time when the world is demanding less fertilizer, less pesticide, they're looking for organic, they're looking for natural, we have it here. We have it here. Almost 99% of the agriculture that we do here, the Liberians do here, I'm not talking about the concessions, 99% of it is chemical free, is organic, is natural. We need to certify that. That's the healthy food that everybody in the world wants to eat. So when you taste our products, it's not just rice. I'm very passionate about our rare country rice that we disdain here. It's the healthiest rice in the world. And there are markets out there who are willing to pay a premium for that healthy rice. The ones who want to eat rice, they want to eat it healthy. I was just reading an article yesterday that claims that the red rice has cancer fighting properties. Well, I mean, I know how healthy it is because we've been promoting it, but that's just the rice. Take our palm oil. You taste the difference in our country oil and the oil that's coming from next to any of the countries next to. Taste it, you would taste the difference, and why? It's because our soil is virgin, our soil not spoiled. So those things are growing just as nature was supposed to be. It tastes superior. Our cocoa, our coffee, our rubber is all of a superior quality than what is grown in mass production with our neighbors.
Okay.
But those are our strengths. That's the dividend that we've gotten now from the war. Not good thing, many good things came out of the war, but that one is
So what can we do now to attract
So
the
what we need to do is to be able to certify that, to have that traceability, that source traceability is very easy in Liberia. We know the farmers, the cooperatives, etc., etc. When you go to sell, when it says stamp Liberia, made in Liberia, product grown in Liberia, is stamped and certified that is organic, is fair trade, it's environmentally friendly, because we have the largest forest cover here. Our crops are grown in the forest and things like that, like cocoa, etc., etc. We have renewable forests. We are growing here. We have the largest forest cover in 40%, 50% of the forest cover in West Africa is here in this country. I'll say in this area, in this country. We have it. So we need to certify and brand ourselves as that. And that brand is the brand that we need to take forward. What does it do when you have that superior brand? I will give you the example of my rice. The rice that we were growing here, we sell the rice here. Our cost of production are pretty high. We all know imported rice is cheaper than locally produced rice. You import rice at $500 a ton. We sell it around $550, $600 a ton. The cost of production of a ton of locally produced rice is somewhere around $750 a ton. We sell it for $765, $780. Because you carry it to $800 a ton. That means to say $20 for a 25 kg bag. People say too expensive. Okay, $800 a ton. That's the most we can sell that rice for here locally. I sell that rice abroad in America for $11,000 a ton. From $800 to $11,000 a ton.
You told me something.
Okay, that's just the rice. Cocoa. And we've been sitting down here going through contortions about cocoa, etc. You saw recently Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire had to put a floor on cocoa prices so that it won't go below, I think, $1,800 a ton or something like that. We're selling our cocoa here between $1,800 and $2,000 a ton. We've just had a delegation of Liberian cooperatives, farmers, processors, cocoa in the cocoa sector went to Europe. They just came back over the weekend. What they found there is that there are people buying cocoa $4,000 a ton, 8, 12, even $40,000 a ton. Now we have superior cocoa. Our cocoa is mixed with the Ivorian cocoa so that they can raise the quality when they go to sell it on the market. They have all the certifications, the ISO, UTZ, all of those different kinds. We don't have, because we have not championed that. But I'm telling you, we're gonna champion that. So our cocoa cooperatives, instead of making $1,800 a ton, they will be making that $4,000, $6,000 a ton. It's time. We have the production, we have the superior quality. We just need a champion to go out there and say, look, here, certified, all the bells and whistles, our cocoa is superior. And in fact, I'm not eyeing the $4,000 a ton cocoa, I'm eyeing the $40,000 a ton cocoa. That's what I want for Liberia to be. Yeah, it's very ambitious, but it's doable. It's doable. In 1 year, 2 years, we can do it. We can do it. We can specialize. You specialize in your cocoa, you grow this kind, and you know that you are able to sell it for that price. Let's make some cocoa people prosperous. Now our farmers need to be prosperous. Our cooperatives need to be prosperous. Not just sitting down there every day with a handheld hoe and a rake and the shovel and the digger and under back-breaking conditions, selling the cocoa for peanuts.
You are now giving our people hope, Madam Minister. I'm sure what they are all smiling that they are about to prosper and prosper more into what they are doing. But one do want to know, basically, yes, it's a big plan, like we said, ambitious. How do you intend? Because I know for you to achieve that, you need a great deal of support. I'm sure international and national as well.
Well, the first thing is, and I want to be very clear about this, President George Weah supports me 100%.
Okay.
A lot of this is his vision. He too look at the problem and he said, but why are we still stuck here doing things the same way how we've been doing it ever since? One friend said, the same way how Moses there used to be farming in the Bible, that the same way we farming here in Liberia. It's true. It's true. We see all our friends there sitting on tractors, sitting on combine harvesters, sitting on with machinery. And we talk about mechanizing, but we don't do it. We'll see the tractor come here and the tractor go. And you know why? Because the first element, before you can use that tractor, you have to clear that land. That land has to be flat. It can't have stump and sticks and things protruding out of it. The tractor cannot be deployed. That's a very simple thing that's easy to change. That's what we were doing here in the late 70s and in the 80s up until the mid 80s. We had a company here called Agrimico. That's what they did. They cleared the land. And that land that they cleared is still cleared. Nobody ain't cleared no more since then. Okay, that's a problem. And you can sit down and weep over history. But the fact is that we're here now. We can clear it.
Naturally.
We can clear it. Within the machines are here. We can clear it. It's just a matter of saying, well, instead of spending the money doing untold assessments, and by the way, the president said he tired. He ain't want hear no more assessment. He ain't want hear no more pile of monitoring and workshop and all of that.
Feasibility study.
Feasibility study. Oh, you know the language. All the funding that comes in here, and I don't even want to believe it, but I'm told $700 million over the last 12, 15 years come in for agriculture. 700 million, and we still doing things the same way how we're doing it before the $700 million came. No, we can't do it like that. So
it just takes differently.
We will do things differently. You notice the thing is, you have the president behind you. He's supportive. You have the government, everybody. There's nobody saying no. Nobody is saying no. Everybody is saying, okay, why didn't we think of this? But okay, all the development partners, all of them, you speak to them and they say, this is what we've been wondering. This is the kind of leadership that we're looking for. So let's go do it. You ready?
Synchronizing your vision with the proper agenda for prosperity and development, there is this very high target that was set up by the government. For instance, the government want to increase agriculture and fishery contribution. That's the contribution they make to the GDP from 26% to 35%. Reduction in post-harvest loss by 50%. Double the number of women farmers and agro-based business incubators in agriculture. These are very high ambitions set by the government to achieve within the next 6 years. We've gone more than we are already approaching 3 years, and now you were just appointed
No,
as.
we're on the third year. We just started the third year.
That's what I'm saying. We are now in the third year.
Yeah,
You were just appointed as the Minister of Agriculture. How do you intend to expedite the achievement of all of these ambitions, in addition to what you've said?
Well, the first thing, for example,
Let's come closer to the mouth.
that target on women. Who told them we need to double the number of women? Women are the majority of the people who are actually farming.
Okay.
Go on any farm, I challenge you. You will see it as the women that farm. So that target,
It's unrealistic.
so it's not unrealistic. We can
It's too
use it
ambitious.
as a target, but we already the ones who are farming. Maybe we should say
Or maybe it's
double
not
the
a
number of
priority.
men. But the focus on agribusiness is certainly something that's doable.
Okay.
The reduction in the contribution to GDP, there is no reason, absolutely no reason. If you focus on agribusiness, we are focusing on agribusiness, we're already at 25%.
Yeah.
When you put that focus on agribusiness is what is going to drive Liberia's GDP. That's a realistic target. They gave it 6 years, okay. We on it. We will do that one. The other one, the second one was
Reduction
reducing
in
post-harvest
loss.
losses. Well, how you will not have post-harvest losses? All the different things. I mean, there's technology available to us that can help us. Simple technologies. That can help us to reduce post-harvest losses. Where do post-harvest losses come from? Part of it comes from during the planting season, when if the farmer doesn't have the manpower, he gets sick for 1 week, he goes there, his crop has been overtaken by weeds. He doesn't have she is sick, she's not able to go there and weed. This happened to me. This happened to me. All the farmers are all working with were women. And the head of the women, she got sick for a couple of weeks, and all the weeds all over there was so difficult to come back from something like that. But we have technologies that can help you to combat weeds from the beginning. It's just a matter of making sure that those technologies are there in the field. We've done the research. We have the research. We have the scientists and everything. We have the technologists, transfer centers. Everything is in place, but we're just transferring the wrong technology. Let's transfer the one that is meaningful. Post-harvest loss, you go and you harvest. You don't have proper storage, but we have warehouses wasting. It's a matter of coordinating those efforts so people have and there's even bags that you can use to store your produce that will keep it safe from pests and other things. You can't keep it safe from theft, but you can keep it safe from pests. We have moisture meters, very simple things. I brought in about 20 of them last year. They cost about $15-20 for one. Just take it, you test your rice. If it's above a certain level, that rice needs to be dried. The farmer knows that, they can keep their rice out there in the sun or whatever method, but then they have dryers, mobile dryers. All the other countries are using things like this, simple technologies. We haven't brought them here. So those are some of the things that we want to be there to reduce those post-harvest losses, we certainly will do that. We certainly will do that.
How do you intend to engage larger companies like Firestone to see that we can begin to add value to the rubber, the raw materials?
Well, I mean, I don't intend to engage Firestone on adding value to the raw materials. We have Liberian rubber processors.
Okay.
That them I want, and I've been engaging with them. I was engaging
How
with
was
them.
those engagement?
I mean, they say they're ready. We have 3 or 4 rib smoke sheets processing plants. All of them are in various stages of operationality. What can we do to help them to stand on their feet so that farmers can go and sell their rubber to them? What can we do? We have a TSR plant in Bomi. What can we do so that farmers can sell their rubber to them? They are able to pay for that rubber, because this is all critical things. They have the money to pay for that rubber and transform it into rubber products. I have challenged them. I told them I won't wear rubber boots made in Liberia.
Surely.
I want, when I go out there, I want to be wearing rubber boots made in Liberia. I want to walk on rubber floor mats made in Liberia. It is possible. We have 3 industries, 3 sectors that are ready to industrialize now in Liberia. The rubber sector is ready to industrialize.
Okay.
Now, not Firestone going to do it for us. We will do it for ourselves, and we
Okay.
should. We are poised to do it. We have the infrastructure is in place. It's the last they push to get it. The oil palm sector. The president says he wants to see exported. He wants to see
Palm
cans
butter.
of palm butter.
Yeah.
You heard it.
Yeah.
Okay. He wants to see palm butter. Why are we not doing that? We make our palm oil is better. Our palm butter is better. But yet we don't have that last. We have a few oil mills. We sending they exporting the palm oil in 5-gallon containers to somewhere else. Bottle those things. We have Amin Mudad, who has just started with his pure palm oil. He's exporting it in bottles, edible. We have Dunyo Latamai, another company in Margibi, that's also bottling palm oil. We have Sumo Farms in Bong that's bottling palm oil, edible palm oil. Let's see how we can take them to the next level. That sector is ready to industrialize. The other one is cassava.
Yeah.
Man, go from here to Ganta. All you see left, right, center, cassava. Simple little tweaks to help. We have cassava processing plants that are not fully operational because the link between the farmers and the processing plant, the link between the processing plant and the for example the flour mill. So we want to see those sectors industrialized. If what it means it takes is we go to the flour mill and say, how many tons of cassava flour do you need? Then we get the processors around and say, how many can you provide? How many can you provide? What do you need to be able to meet this demand from the flour mill? So they can reduce the importation of wheat flour, add cassava flour to our diet. What does it take? It's a simple, you meet, you have funding available, you channel that funding towards meeting that thing, and you have an outlet already. The consumers, that reduces some of the import costs, it's import substitution, and all of that. I mean, those 3 sectors are ready. The cocoa sector that I just told you about, cocoa is gold right now.
Okay.
Cocoa is gold right now, and we have to be very careful that we don't let any kind of wrong thinking keep us down at that $1,800, $2,000 level. We need to move up to that $40,000 a ton level with cocoa. We need to specialize, and we can do it.
We can do it.
We can do it.
Part of your implementing agenda is that you intend to train the Ministry of Agriculture, according to you, as the Farmers Service Center Ministry.
Yes, sir.
Tell us about this. How are you going to do it? Yeah, we want to know.
Well, I told you, for me, one of the largest rice processors, I'm coming from the private sector, and the ministry has not been the place that I went to for anything.
Wow.
Because they had nothing to offer me. They didn't have extension services to offer me. They didn't have, I couldn't ask them any question. They answered, in fact, they asked me questions. It shouldn't be like that. So if somebody has 200 acres and they come to the ministry and say, what can I plant on this 200 acres? We have all the experts will not train. They're there. We have the means to go and help them and develop. In fact, my team is working at the ministry. They're working right now on a cocoa farm management plan with a crop budget and all of that. That's the kind of thing that farmers and prospective farmers, investors should be able to ask the ministry and we be able to provide. So we have to be there if a farmer is seeing some kind of problem with their plant, that they're able to ask us, okay, that don't mean to say everybody needs to come to Monrovia and climb up the steps to the ministry to go and ask. We have cell phones. We have county agriculture officers. We have service centers in all the 15 counties. Make them functional so that the farmer, if he has a question, he wants to know how much can I sell my plantain when I finish paying the transportation to bring it from wherever. From Ganta down to Monrovia. What can I expect? Can we have storage facilities, warehousing along the way so that we can have our food preserved? You talked about the post-harvest losses. That's part of the post-harvest losses. You go, you harvest your planting, and sit down 4 or 5 days, you can't get car. When you get the car, you bring it down. The market women say, no, sorry, we're not buying planting today. Until you get desperate, you sell it for a throwaway price. We have to do, those are market information systems, and they are very simple to set up. We have all the infrastructure in place. It's just now to add the software to it and make it do.
Okay, Madam Minister, thank you very much. At least you've told us about some of the things you intend to do. But I know you have your plans in phases. I know you have the immediate, the long term, the medium term, and all of that. Do you care to just drive us through what you intend to do immediately?
Well, I think the first thing that needs to happen is we need to change the narrative, change the paradigm, shift our thinking, realize that what we have, what we produce in Liberia is superior to what the things that we importing. I don't think that anything that we importing that is of a better quality than what we grow here.
Wow.
I don't think anything. And somebody want to challenge me, bring it. Let's discuss. Unless we don't grow it here, or we don't raise it here, or don't cultivate it here. Whatever we have here is of a superior quality. So why we keep on spending all our money for imported things? Well, okay, that's the first thing. So we need to change the way we think. Change our mindset to value what we have. We have a very wealthy land. We just need to be able to turn those resources from our fingertips into actual prosperity.
Okay, so that's your immediate plan
That's
to make us to change our mindset. But
Yes.
how do you intend to do that? Because we've been with this mindset for quite a long time. That may be the one that coming
Well,
from
I mean,
outside.
this is one of the ways that I intend to do that is to get the message out, because I'm telling you things about our products. Our rubber has more elasticity than the rubber that's mass produced next to. So everybody crying, oh, we used to be the #1 in Africa for rubber. Yeah, okay, but we're still the #1 in terms of the quality of what we produce. How can we market that? So talking on shows like this, that's the first step. Showing people what is possible. When we intend to do the team that went to Holland and Belgium last week to this cocoa trade fair meeting with cocoa investors, we intend to broadcast what they saw and let people know, because our cocoa farmers here think that we're stuck, we can only do it this way. Show them a different way. So that requires a lot of media,
public engagement.
marketing, public engagements, etc. on the possibilities.
Sure.
For me, I'm not about the challenges. The challenges are there. Challenges are meant to be overcome.
They're not
So
insurmountable.
none of them are insurmountable. Once you have the political will, and we have the political will, the president wants this to happen,
Okay.
and I want this to happen. We all gotta want this to happen. So that's the first in the immediate term.
To change the mindset.
Yes. what we're doing is we're working with financial advisors and in the banking sector to see how we can infuse some capital into the agri sector now during the planting season, because it makes a difference if you say you're gonna give a farmer a loan. You getting that loan in August, school fees coming up in September. He can't plant in August. He waiting for rainy season to end and all of that. He will use the money.
Okay.
He will use the money. But you give him now when he needs to plant, he will plant and he will expand what he has for next year. So by the time you reach harvest time, December, January, etc., you will be seeing the bounty of what you have infused there. So get some cash into the sector. I don't, we toying with different ways that we looking at how we can do this equitably. And people say, oh, we don't want to risk. And I say, well, we've wasted so much on assessments and training. Let me take $4-5 million from the assessment and training and do this. If we waste it, it would be just the same as if we had done the assessment and training.
Oh,
So those are my immediate goals, and then we move forward. Part of changing the mindset is also the way we look at the concessions, because when you tell me that 25% of our GDP is coming from agriculture, it's not coming from the late tomatoes and pepper that we grow.
No.
It's coming from these agricultural concessions. Why are we treating them like stepchildren? Our enemies. They provide to the largest employer. If Firestone sneeze, you feel it in Kakata. Payday in Firestone, you can always tell. You go to Kakata, you will see the vibrancy. You will see money moving around. They are important for our economy. But we've been treating them, oh, they're not doing this, they're not doing that, they're not doing that 25% you already got that one there under your belt. Don't go beat those people up. See how you can get that 25% to 50%.
So you intend to strengthen your relationship with them?
I certainly do. I mean, I think that they've had a hard rap from us in Liberia, primarily because nobody has been offering an alternative. And that alternative has to come from us. That alternative has to come from us. We are Liberians, we are farming. 80% of us are out there in the agriculture sector one way or the other. Well, let's make those 80% prosperous enough that we don't have to be beating on GVL and Sam Darby going now. We done beat them till they left. I beg you. So we don't want that. And when they leave, so many jobs are lost.
Yes,
so many families don't have an income.
Yeah.
Hey, my people, is this what we want? And we don't have, we have to be sure we have something to put in place before we drive anybody away.
Maybe one reason is that reason is that they are not really actualizing or maybe implementing their bargain, their part of the bargain. Maybe and that's one reason.
Well, I disagree with you. I disagree with you
time.
when LAC tells me that their hospital delivers one baby a day. Okay? At no cost to government, no cost to anybody, one baby a day. They have a hospital there. I was born in a concession hospital. My father died in a concession hospital. They have provided a vital service where the government was not able to provide it and the private sector was not able to provide it. So they have done that. And they are doing that. They have trained so many people. They provide jobs and employment. So whatever the bargain is, because the rest of our economy has not risen up to take up the baton from them. When they pass it on, nobody was there to take it, so they continue. And then we keep on weighing on them for social services that we should be able to provide. And if we can grow our agriculture sector, our local Liberian-owned agriculture sector, we can do it for ourselves. We don't want to be begging people to do it for us. We don't want that. Most Liberians would prefer to have that autonomy and that independence and that prosperity to be able to do it. But if we just stay like this and they look like the only ride in town, then we all want to ride there. But there are alternatives, and that's what we want to see happen here.
You have a very great ambition for the agriculture sector, but trust me, those ambitions can only be achieved if the farmers have access to those funding from those lenders, the commercial banks. And the commercial banks alone can also do that. We used to have a bank here called the Cooperative or Agricultural Bank. It being a default for the last decades or so. What sort of approach do you intend to implement in order to revive this bank so as to enable our farmers to have access to funding to achieve the dreams that you have for the agriculture sector?
Well, I mean, this is something I've been hearing ever since I came home, of the need to have the agriculture. The agriculture bank went out of business for a reason. So when we start talking about setting it back up, we must understand what happened.
Okay.
Okay, what caused it to die the first start. So before we revive it, so we can't repeat those mistakes. Setting up an agriculture bank for me is a medium to long term goal, because to set up a bank is not just say we want an agriculture bank. You have to capitalize it. You have to build the whole system that resuscitate it. I don't got that kind of time. I don't got that kind of time. If we want to make changes, we got to make changes now. So the commercial banks are here. They are in my crosshairs. I'm looking at them. None of them has an agricultural lending window. They lend to agriculture the same way how they lend to the traders going to China to go and buy a cell phone to come and sell. You can't lend to agriculture. I mean, every time you talk to them, they talk about 3 months you must repay, and they won't charge you 20% interest, 30% interest. For God's sake,
That's so huge.
you know, nobody does that, and say that you're trying to boost agriculture. So we want to work with them. We want to work with them for them to develop agricultural lending products that are patient capital. That's what they call it. They are willing to wait 3 to 5 years, maybe 10 years, so you can borrow. That's how our agriculture sector was built. When we look at the rubber sector, all the plantations, you think that were 3-month loans that people were taking to set up those things? Those were long-term 10-year, 15-year loans that they took. Just like you take that loan to pay off your house, and sometimes you take that loan to pay off your car. Why are you paying off your farm in 3 months or 6 months before you can even, if you want plant 3 to 5 years for the cocoa to grow, meanwhile you have to pay the bank back after year 1. That doesn't make any sense. So we want to work with them. We want to work with them to develop at least 3-4 of them. We got 9, I think 8 or 9 commercial banks here. 3-4 of them sit down and say,
have you earmarked them already?
Yes, we have.
Could you mind telling us?
Well, okay. There's AfriLand Bank that is supposed to be the agriculture, friendly bank, etc., etc. Their rates are too high. They don't really have a good agricultural lending package. There's Access Bank. That's a microfinance institution. Access is very good. That's my personal bank. That's where I got my money. When they talk to me for a loan, even for my money, we're looking at 30-35% interest 1 year, and they say, we can give you 2. Like, that's helpful. That's not helpful. What will I do with 35% interest? I mean,
Very high.
it's way too high. It's unconscionable. So I'm looking at them. I'm looking at EcoBank. We're looking at LBDI. LBDI has already trained some officers in what it takes to do agricultural lending. Now to say that they have an agricultural lending package yet.
They don't have it yet.
But they see the need. They are a Liberian bank. They're the only Liberian bank. And they want to move in that direction. So how can we work with them so that we can develop a product that our farmers can go to in safety and security? Because by the time they finish taking the collateral, everything you own, including the unborn baby from your cows and goats,
And
and the interest rate you just pay interest. You can't, so we have to work with the commercial banks, and they're open to it. So it's just, we come into that. We have village savings and loans in some of the rural areas. We have rural community banks. We have other mechanisms for agricultural lending. Part of the problem is preparing those to be able to take loans. So making them bankable, making them, helping them to have the management structures that they can manage a loan. They take a loan that they don't
Because
go
the
and
problem
buy,
is, the problem lies, Madam
buy a
Minister.
new Hilux,
Thank you.
Toyota Hilux.
Thank you.
They drive it up and down till they spoil it.
People take loans
And,
and they do different things with the money.
Okay, so so the work has to be on both sides.
Surely.
Let's not,
Not just
I'm
on
not
the side of
putting
the banks, yeah.
exactly. And it won't be any different. You have an agricultural bank. We still need to prepare our farmers, our cooperatives, for the management structures and management mentality, for the management period, to be able to manage loans and repay loans. So that's something we're working on, and we're talking with development partners. Many of them are interested. There are models that work in other places. There are models that have worked here in Liberia. We need to understand what has worked, what hasn't worked. For example, the village savings and loans. One of the reasons why, or the rural community banks, they work very well. You're in a village like let's say Zozo, not a village, that's a town, city. You in a small. Let me take a smaller one. Let's say Todi. The bank is there. It's all their money. They go and they lend it out to the people in the village there. When that man goes and buys a motorbike with that money that he borrowed to make a farm, everybody in the village knows. But if you're sitting in Monrovia and you have loaned that man that money and he gone to Todi, you will not know that he has bought. So the village is a policing mechanism, is a monitoring mechanism, and they will say, "Ah, but my man, you bought a motorbike. You told us you were taking our money to go and do this." And so there's that deterrent that's there. So we're just discussing it and say one of the problems is when they try to scale them and give them more money to lend to, then they start lending to people in other villages. They don't have that same monitoring capacity. They run into the same problem that the banks have here. But if you're in a small village and you're lending in that small community, you know everything that's happening in that community. So you're able to make sure that it's used the way it's supposed to be used. And if there's a problem, you're able to see how you can address that problem quickly enough before it becomes a catastrophe. So we're looking at all of those systems and see which one or ones will be the ways that we will go forward in the short and medium term. And in the long term, there's no reason why we can't have an agricultural bank if people are so emotionally attached to one. But that's not a 2 to 6 month endeavor. That's a multi-year undertaking.
What about coordinating donor funds?
Yes. What about it?
Yeah, being a challenge. Tell us about your
Been a
plans
challenge.
for...
Coordination is an art. Coordination is an art, and I did that for 14 years for the UN.
Yeah.
It's not easy, but and people don't like when you think about coordination. Most think about control, and that's not what it is. Coordination is just making sure that if you have you have some funds that you want to put in a sector, this person has certain needs, that you don't go and put it somewhere else. You tell them, but have you met? But it's in B, they need health services or maternal child health care or whatever. You can tell them. And most people, especially if you take a broader approach where you provide the vision and the strategy, you have your objectives and your goals, and you say, these are the things that we want to achieve. What can you contribute? Then each person can look in their pocket and say, oh, this one match this particular money that I have, I can do this.
That's
the other one, that's coordination. And those are some of the systems that, again, the infrastructure is there. The governance structures are there. Let me say, we have the agricultural donor working group. We have all kinds of coordinating mechanisms that exist in principle, but they have not been meeting and they have not been providing that kind of direction. So let's see how we can revive that and actually get some of that coordination going. and this is a good time actually for me to be starting, you know. So I'm luckier than some of my predecessors because it's like almost all the major programs are being recalibrated right now. This 2020, people thinking they haven't finalized their donor, their investment plans, etc., etc. So this is a good time for us to say, okay, you haven't finalized things, and you want to do mechanization, for example. Can you put a portion of that towards clearing the land? Simple thing like that, and just say, can you help us with this? Or the thing we just been talking about, the funding, helping us. Can you help us to prepare cooperatives in the cocoa sector to be able to take advantage of this opportunity for the $40,000 per ton? That's me now. Okay, you say $4,000 to $6,000. Then the people will be, when they go, they offer them $6,000. They say, I want it. The minister say 40. So, but you know, to get more money and proper value for their cocoa, can you help us to prepare them so that they do the things that will add value to their cocoa or their rubber or their rice or their whatever? Can you help us to do that? Can you help us to have the warehousing systems that can preserve the food so that the planting and the farmer that's bringing their planting to market, they don't have to face wastage and things like that? And by and large, the funding is there, the vision is there, the you know, and it's just let's work together.
That's all.
Yeah,
So
that's
have you started engaging your partners maybe in the ministry, the foreign partners, and telling them about your vision, your plans, and how they can also eat?
Yes. I've been engaging them almost from the beginning. You know, I think there's very few that I haven't met now. There are a few key ones, but I think I've met most of the people resident here. Today I met the ministry staff for the first time. It's only been a week since I actually took office, so give me chance. Meeting. So yeah, it's going like that. So yes, and by and large, the support has been almost universal. I haven't met anybody that said, no, the way you're talking, no, it's not interesting to us. Staff, I haven't met any like that. They you know, people are excited. So I told the ministry staff today, I said, we're going on a journey. Let's go.
But the most I've told you about some very urgent and pressing issues at the ministry. Could you mind telling us?
Yeah, there's always challenges and problems, but by and large, I think people have been maybe they're being kind to you, and you know, I can play that new card for a while. So I haven't been facing big problems. It's mainly getting settled in.
Okay.
There are some gaps in the staffing tables that we're looking to fill. In the meantime, I need thinkers, so I have an agribusiness growth delivering unit that's also helping me to transition in, telling me, you know, helping me to know what's out there. I've gotten the president's blessing to work with that unit, and you know, because I needed to hit the ground running. I can't be taking time to learn everything that's there and hearing about operation issues that will bog me down. But let's help to craft this vision, get some sectoral advice, get some good proposals going there that when the president says, okay, what are you doing for this one? That I'm able to say, okay, this is what we plan, and this is where I need your support, or this is where, you know, I need, and you know, even working with other ministries, Ministry of Youth and Sports, for example. They have the agricultural youth training centers. We're looking forward to working with them on those and seeing how we can make them vibrant. Ministry of Internal Affairs, they have some rural community projects. Let's see how we can make those, very effective and productive. Ministry of Gender, of course, when you come up with the gender indicators that we want to meet, how can we work together to do that? So I'm really excited about working with everyone.
Okay, what about agencies that are directly under your supervision, like Fishery, LACRA? How do you intend to partner with them in order to achieve this ambition of your country's agriculture forward?
Well, the first thing is it's been 8 months since there was a minister, and so a lot of the the role that the ministry was supposed to play has not been really very strong. So you didn't have a minister, so they didn't call board meetings, etc., etc. So as soon as possible, I'd like to schedule board meetings so they can brief me and explain. LACRA is one, and I've already talked to Dr. Flomo, and I said, listen, I see you in the news every day. Can we meet? Let's review and see the directions that you go. Where are your shoes pinching you? So we can see what can the ministry do to help. Same thing with Carrie. Same thing with Fisheries. Fisheries, she's doing an awesome job. I must take my hat off to her. But she's also very open. Let's see how we can do whatever I'm doing. You can come and add your weight to it, and we can move forward. Cooperative Development Agency, likewise. So there's quite a few. Forestry, all of them have shown themselves very willing to. Let's get those board meetings done and underway and start moving.
Okay, you are listening to ELBC 99.9. This is the Bumper Show coming to you live on this frequency and other frequencies across the country. In a moment from now, we are going to open the phone lines so that you can have an opportunity to interact with the Minister of Agriculture, who is our guest here this evening, discussing all of our plans for the countries to move Liberia's agriculture sector forward. So the number will be announced by my colleague Saba George, and we'll be right here to answer to receive your questions, forward them to the minister so that she can respond to them. Saba.
Okay, so you can put a course now on 0776089713, or better still 0880514096. That's the numbers to call.
Hello? Good evening, your name and where are you calling from? Oh, we lost that caller.
We lost this caller. Let's take this other caller.
Hello? Good evening, your name and where are you calling from? Okay, what's your take?
Well, let me say a special greeting to the minister and for who played thus far. But I have two quick questions. The one goes directly to the budget. I read the budget of 2019-2020, and the allotment for in the budget for it is $6,208,754. And for me, it's the second lowest. The first lowest is the tourism sector that carries 4,000. And you are the second lowest. Only to the fact that these are two vital areas in our economy. How do you, intend in making the government the one saying that your sector is the vital sector that can really grow as an economy? Thank you so much. And the next question is, how do you intend, working with your people in terms of this issue about the loan scheme? Because it's actually important for them to be, proactive in trying to see how they can work with the sector because it helps us a lot to grow. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Hello, your name and where are you calling from? Hello?
Hello.
Your name and where are you calling from?
Yeah, my name is Michael Iflomo. I'm usually Istanbul Society.
Okay, what's your take?
Yeah, I followed the minister for some time now. See, for working, I've been following for long period of time. And I don't think the president makes any mistake by appointing that in. Because even for someone, we need someone who's innovative. We need people who can speak fast. So, you know, what agriculture is very important in our society. What's happening here? We don't need to go out there and get it right. We can grow this thing here. So I don't think the president made a mistake by appointing that woman. Thank you.
All right, thank you too for calling. Hello, your name and where are you calling from?
0776-089-713 or better still 0880514-096. Guest System Minister of Agriculture.
Hello? Hello? Your name and where are you calling from?
It's Paulo calling from District Level.
Okay, what's your take?
And I appreciate the minister so much. And when I say, I know the president did not make a mistake by appointing his minister. If we have had minister of education in the previous year like this, we're going to move ahead. And she struck on something that really touched me. Whenever we went to that ministry of agriculture, those who had the anxiety to make a farm and seeking loan, will play you out. The power one that the table farmer. Those who are referred to as table farmer, they just move somewhere and prepare a document. They got no land, they got no fund, they got no intention. They want to get any money to buy. And the country PFP.
All right, thank you. Your name and where are you calling from?
Hello?
Hello?
Yes, hello.
Your name and where are you calling from?
Yeah, I'm Emmanuel Kweke and I call you from Greenville, Shallow County.
Okay, what's your take?
I want to say connected to Sabbath Devotion and Redmond and our ever put minister.
Okay.
I'm overwhelmed in music. I sit in my closet and I'm over happy seeing my people who are taking family silo of who are going to help by me. Now we have tributes, we have the minister we have. I mean, I want to really appreciate the president so much for bringing such a brilliant people on board. You guys have a uniform for a shine. And I also want to recommend the president is looking around the agency whom to appoint as compared to managerial. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you too for calling. Your name and where are you calling from? Hello?
Good evening.
Good evening, your name and where are you calling from?
Good evening, Samuel. Good evening to Agriculture Minister of Jeanine.
Okay.
And you there and we to use this thing for this kind of my church.
What's your take?
One day I want to agree to you, my agriculture center on Harvard, especially. But inside, you can put in civil and naturally. But I think also there's like the issue of what people are complaining where pressure from the government. They are complaining where they are the money are being passed for time. Instead of pay, there's a cover with that belongs to us and all was on everyone. And then you being out for the local government with program where we tell the government. At the end of you go through the process where especially for your own benefit, you are good enough for paying when you really good enough for one people to pay very much is involved. And then the manager will come and say, they're good enough to so honor your own on the out of this stuff when you think can also the police people and I need to the money so I want to say so move through there and all the rest of the thank you.
Okay, thank you for calling. Your name and where are you calling from?
0776-089-713. That's the number to call, or better still 0880514-096.
Your name and where are you calling from? Okay. What's your take? All right, thank you. Thank you for calling. Your name and where you calling from? Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Your name and where you calling from? Okay, so what's your take? Oh, your line is breaking in. We can't.
Okay, let's see this on the call.
Hello?
Hello?
Hello, your name and where you calling from?
Just go ahead quickly.
Thank you. Good evening, my dear also, and good evening to the rural broadcast. This is you this one. Good evening, Minister Howard. So, I said to the minister, very easily, and what we need to do is that something that issue that we have for a president, for the minister, the practical minister to the minister of agriculture. The best thing we can do as Nigerians is that to the EU, to international partners to come through and give support to the minister, so that when you're talking about manufacturing, like that's still get boom, specifically in the agricultural sector. And the next budget to come, that the legislature has everything work together and see how we can increase the budget of agriculture, so that our country can probably do agriculture. Thank you very much, Minister. And we'll operate for you.
All right, thank you too for calling. Hello, your name and where you calling from? Hello? Your name and where you calling from?
Okay, this is Shekinah Ahova. I'm calling from Morovia.
Okay.
Good evening, Madam Minister. Good evening, to Nigeria. Madam Minister, I wish to congratulate you for your presentment and uplifting to your vision for agriculture in Nigeria. As you might be aware, the Ministry of Agriculture and the Central Bank are implementing an IFA project to reform financial institutions around the country. As a matter of fact, the Central Bank has 12 existing financial institutions around the country, and the IFA project is intended to bring 10 more online. My appeal to you is for you to anchor your vision to these local community banks in terms of developing the local agricultural industry around the country. And as manager of that project, I look forward to meeting with you someday. So thank you very much for the minister.
All right, thank you too for calling. Your name and where you calling from?
07760897113. That's the number to call. Or better still, you can put your calls on 880514-096.
Hello, your name and where you calling from? Your name and where you calling from?
My name is Director. We are in a call from Kunde Nikrita.
Okay, what's your take?
Let me first say congratulations to the Honorable Minister. And I would like to know from her, can we produce rice in fields like Syria? If yes, what have been our constraints and what possible recommendations or she going to put in place to ensure that Liberia or Liberians can feed themselves?
All right, thank you. Your name and where you calling from?
Hello.
Your name and where you calling from?
Yeah, I'm Sylvester, the Corporate Bank in the Council.
Okay, so, okay.
Yeah, I want to first say thank you to our minister in studio that for me, I would like to say I'm a agricultural technician, but just wanted to say, I just came and put my radio and then I heard I'm very, very much excited. So we all will work together to see how that project, because one person cannot do this, and I believe it over one. People will start to blame us. For me, my idea is that all those that have this experience or knowledge, they go and put a hand around us to help us our country to go for our kids of agriculture. Thank you.
All right, thank you too for calling. Your name and where are you calling from? Okay, we'll take two more
We
callers.
lost this caller 07760897113. That's the number to call, or better still 0880514-096.
Hello?
Yeah, hello.
Your name and where are you calling from?
Yeah, I'm George Kato. I'm calling from Pinsville.
Okay, what's your take?
Yeah, I'm speaking to the minister there, and I believe the president trusts him so much because I can remember that day when you were delivering his speech, and all the opposition had problem with it, and when he said that yes, if I know that this lady don't do it, then I don't see who else can do it. So I know that he believes you, and we know that you can do all to deliver our economy. So one of the things I want you to focus on, we the Liberian people, our right business. So if there's a way that you can negotiate for a larger company to come to open a mechanized farming, I think it will be also healthy for our country. I thank you so much for the number of effort that you're applying, sir.
Okay, the last caller, your name and where are you calling from?
Okay.
The last caller, your name and where are you calling from?
Hello, my name is Samson Corey, and I'm calling from the District of Hotel.
Okay, so what's the take?
Yes, I want to say to the Honorable Minister is here. I just want to ask a question concerning the Executive Order 97 and 60 tariff agro imports in Liberia. Since the President issued that order, and then yet said the agricultural imports are still expensive on the market. Can I easily ask that you have a little money? I want to please address it to how far are they capable to Executive Order 97 coming to effect?
All right, thank you very much for all of your respective calls.
Second one.
Yeah,
My second question, please.
yeah.
I want the minister to please show a little light on how our work will be with the private sectors, mainly community-based organizations who are also in the agricultural sector in country.
Okay, many thanks for all of your concerns. We now go back to the Minister of Agriculture to respond to your concerns.
Minister?
Yeah, okay, so good questions, and thank you for all the compliments that everybody is paying me. I appreciate it very much. The first question that I heard was on agriculture having the second lowest budget in the national budget. Okay, and I guess how will I work? That question came from another caller. How will I work to increase the agriculture budget? I think part of the problem is that our national budget has been going under some severe restrictions lately because of the economic downturn that has been occurring over the last 3-4 years. And so what we're facing is something that many other economists have faced before, and that's austerity. So in those cases, I think the thinking in the budget formation was that there are a lot of agricultural projects and a lot of agricultural funding that's coming into the sector that's not necessarily for the budget, so the government doesn't have to work alone. There are several development partners that have incorporated budget support for the agricultural ministry within their program. So what you see in the budget is not the entirety of what is available to agriculture, but your point is well taken. Agriculture and tourism, arguably the two sectors that can drive an economic renaissance in this country, the two lowest funded. But I just see those things as challenges that can be overcome. Let us go out there and attract the private capital and drive the private capital in, that we would not need a larger budget, that it will be happening out there in the private sector. And that addresses a question someone else asked, probably the last question that was asked, on how we will work with the private sector, CBOs and so forth. We're looking to empower the private sector. When the private sector is thriving, you don't need big government. You don't need a huge government presence and support. So that's what we're looking to transform the way that we do business. The dependence on the ministry to deliver what the private sector is able to, willing to, and just needs a little bit of help to start developing. Um, I'm not sure I got the full question from the fisherman who was asking about support to that sector, but rest assured, there was a time when fisheries was the largest part of the agricultural productivity in this country. I think second only to rubber. Be looking at and seeing how we can bring some support and some new life into there. Not just the coastal fishery, but also looking at how we can stimulate aquaculture here in Liberia, growing fish and shrimp. Um, okay, for export. Apparently, you were talking about some of the fees that are being charged to fishermen. Well, I have not yet met we have not yet had board meetings for any of the agencies, the semi-autonomous agencies that over which we have oversight. So this is definitely something that I would take when we meet with the fisheries department and see how we can do that. Someone mentioned and it's close to my heart. My fellow Margibian talked about rubber buckets and rubber cups that we need to start manufacturing our own. There is no reason why we are not doing it already. And so this is something even before I became minister, I was doing ministerial things. I think that's why they call on me. I've been saying this to my friends and relatives and all the people I know in the rubber sector. For goodness sake, can we not have one thing that we produce here? One thing. And the challenge I gave them the other day, I said I must wear rubber boots made here from Liberian rubber in Liberia, made here.
Okay.
Not made in China from Liberia rubber that we ship back and then they sell it to me for a huge price. We must have things like rubber buckets. We use them all the time. The rubber cups, even the things we use to collect latex. Why are we not manufacturing those things here? There's so many simple things. Floor mats, roofing tiles. We can do this, and we have the technology, we have the infrastructure, we have the rubber. So we can do it. The EFAD funding for the 12 agricultural financial institutions, I think those were the ones that I was mentioning before, that have the capacity to monitor the loans much better than a commercial bank sitting in a city some distance away. 10 more to come online. This is something that we will be working. We hope to work very closely with EFAD and the central bank to see that every community, every farming community has that kind of access to such an institution. If that means that we have to move from 12 to 22 to 200, that's what we will be supporting, because the money has to reach to the hands of the people who need it. Okay. There were a couple of questions on rice and what will I put in place. There's a challenge that I give to people all the time, because I come in from the rice sector. I got a rice factory, and I ask, how many of you have eaten country rice in the last 1 week? I ask that question because when we say we should grow our own rice, we are growing our own rice and we are not eating it. So there may be different reasons. Usually when I ask that question, people tell me, no, I haven't eaten it recently. I ate it today. And I eat it every day. So, don't be telling me to go and tell a farmer, go grow something that you will not buy. You're not eating it. But it could be that you want to eat it and it's not available for different supply reasons, etc., or it's expensive. So what can we do? We're looking at a multi-pronged approach to do that. And the first step is government buys rice for government institutions like the prisons, the army, the police, the hospitals, the schools, etc. can we grow our sector so that we are able to provide 100%? I'm not asking the question. We can grow the sector so that by 2021 January or February, because it was saying February, by 2021 February, I can tell you that 100% of the government procurement of rice for the prisons, the schools, the hospitals, the AFL, the police, 100% of that is coming from local rice. That one we can do. The next step after that is by February 2022, I can tell you that 100% of what the concessions are buying, because those are the largest consumers of rice, is from local rice. Meanwhile, we'll be talking to y'all how y'all need to be eating and loving your own country rice because it's better, it's healthier, it's tastier. I beg you. So that's how we will grow that sector. But it's not something that can be done overnight. But it's certainly something that is doable. When we talked about getting larger companies to come in and open up some mechanized farms, that's definitely a high priority for us, is to get mechanization into the sector, not just for rice, for all of the different crops. We have to put down the hand tools. We have, we're in the 21st century. Let's do smart agriculture. It's possible. We have the capacity. So it's just a matter of making sure that our resources are aligned with that vision for mechanized farming. There's another question on Executive Order 9097 that you have not seen the impact of that reduction, and I think there's some issues with the executive order. The executive order was given, but the implementation has been a little bit slow. People have not been able to take advantage of that executive order. I have not met anybody yet. And when I was out in the private sector, I was very upset about the fact that this executive order was in place, and I tried on several occasions to take advantage of it, and I was batted away by either the LRA or the customs people or the people at the port or the people at the airport. No, you have to pay. That's unfair. You have an executive order, and then they will find some fine print to say why you have to pay. Oh, this particular item is not on the list. But the idea behind what the president was trying to do was to reduce the prices of agricultural inputs that coming into the country. Let's take that idea and make it work for Liberians. That was what he was trying to do. So, going and sticking to the point and making things expensive. As I'm speaking here now, I ordered some irrigation guns. They call them that you spray the water with. They are sitting in the Federal Express office because I refuse to pay what they charge. They charge me everything from goods and services tax to import tax to some kind of other tax again. Then a nebulous tax that has no home. I couldn't find it in any of the code books. And then the one charge me transportation. I told them keep it. So it's there since November. They say I get a hard time. Yes. And we will continue to give them hard time because the idea behind that executive order was to make things easier for the people doing agriculture. Then y'all come in and see how you can continue to complicate things and make it more different. So we'll be working more closely with them to see how we can make the full impact of the president's intention felt.
All right, thank you very much for coming. I will know you have a lot of things to tell our people. Our time cannot permit us to continue this conversation. And this is how I would like to say goodbye to all of you. This has been a wonderful time with the Minister of Agriculture, Summer George, and I, and the Minister of Agriculture, Madam Jeanine Cooper. I was here. She took us through her plans and visions for the sector. Thank you.